share, recipe share. Share a little recipe with Recipe Share. Recipe Share, Recipe Share. Share a little recipe with Recipe Share.
Hello, thank you for joining us for this episode of Recipe Share, a program on AADL TV, where we take a few minutes to talk about recipes from a featured category. Today's category is leafy greens. I'm Beth, and I'm here with Elizabeth and Katie to tell us about their recipes. So Katie, go ahead and tell us about your recipe.
Okay, so the recipe that I'm sharing today is called Ensalada Verde. It's from a restaurant called Via Carrata in New York City, and you can actually go to their website and see that they still serve this salad. It costs $20 if you buy it at the restaurant. I actually first saw this recipe in a New York Times article in 2019 called "The Best Green Salad in the World." And I was like, whoa, like lofty claim. Read the article, didn't make the salad. And then they republished the recipe this summer and it was behind a paywall, so I couldn't get to it. Googled it, somebody else had published it. So that's a nice tip if you're running into those New York Times recipes that you have to be a subscriber for. Google it. Sometimes somebody who subscribes has published it. So that's how I found this recipe. It's a really sort of involved recipe. There's lots of different kinds of lettuces, and the secret ingredients, they're sort of like different temperatures of water. So I'm going to tell you about it. The greens that it calls for are butter lettuce, romaine, Belgian endive, watercress, and frisee. I can't stand watercress. So in order to keep the peppery flavor of it without that bitterness to it, I substituted arugula. And then they tell you all these specific ways to trim your lettuces. And then you take a very clean sink or basin and fill it with tepid water. And you wash your lettuce first in the tepid water, then drain it. And then you do it in cool water and drain it. And then you do it in cold water. So you've washed your lettuces 3 times, and then you take them and put them on a towel to sort of dry while you make the salad dressing. And the salad dressing is a minced shallot that you rinse in cold water and drain it. And then you put it in a bowl with vinegar and warm water, and you let that sit for 2 minutes before adding in oil, mustard, honey, thyme, garlic, and salt. And so it's a pretty basic vinaigrette, but really tasty. It was good on other things that I had it left over for as well. So once you've done all that, you take handfuls of greens and you put them on your plate or bowl, and then you drizzle the dressing over top, and then more handfuls of greens, more drizzling, more handfuls and more drizzling until you've got this big mound of salad. And the idea is that you don't toss it, you just sort of eat it. So you're getting the greens with little pockets of the dressing, and it's really light and airy. And I thought it was tasty and super involved. I'm not going to do this for my dinner salads every night, but it's something that I could totally see doing for like the beginning of garden season when the lettuces are the first thing to come up, and you sort of like could see it being like a mindful activity where you're caring for each individual leaf by washing it 3 times and all that. One thing that I did recently read about, actually in a New York Times recipe that I found this week for a salad, was that they were recommending that you refrigerate your greens after you wash them and before dressing them. They say it gives it more of a crisp restaurant style sort of salad. So I think next summer, when I make this, I'll add that refrigeration step and see if it makes it even fancier. But that is a very fancy leafy greens salad recipe.
So Katie, I almost screamed when you brought this up because that was my recipe until this morning, and I made a switch.
That's
like literally
so funny.
30 minutes ago.
I saw your eyes. I knew you recognized what I was talking about.
No, it's just so funny because honestly, up until this very morning, I was like, I'm going to switch and do something else that I made. But I heard about it on the podcast Home Cooking with Simi Nosrat and Rishi Sherway.
Okay.
And they brought it up. So I looked it up and had the same experience, Katie. I found it like through a different website. And I actually make the dressing with some frequency, and I just put it on like a regular salad with like arugula and regular lettuce that I don't carefully treat. And I find that it stores pretty well for a few days in the fridge. So I do make the dressing very frequently, but I'm with you that the like careful tending of the greens is not ideal for a weeknight situation. But like, I do feel like if exactly like you said, in the spring, the perfect greens, and you just want that like amazing freshness, I do think it's worth it for those, like that month in the spring when everything's like perfect at the farmer's market and it's just awesome. But I love that dressing so much.
Cool. I'm so glad that you've made that as well. That's awesome.
Yeah, that is cool. That brings me to thinking about how we care for lettuce. And so I don't wash it 3 times, but we do, put it in the sink like that and then let it dry on a towel. But it seems like, I guess you really have to let it dry. So how long did it take you to let it dry?
So I actually skipped a step because the recipe uses a spinner.
Okay.
You spin it before you lay it out on the towel. So that does take care of that, helping it dry a little bit. Yep.
Yeah.
So glad you asked about that.
I do use a spinner though, and it's still.
Really?
Yeah. Maybe it's just, I don't know. Spinners old. I don't know. I can't, like, by the time we put it in the crisper, the old Tupperware crisper that we have, just sometimes it's still too damp and
I wonder about the idea that I was talking about refrigerating them, because that you need kind of a lot of space in your refrigerator is the only thing I'm thinking. But like, if you could lay out your greens in the fridge rather than putting them in the crisper right away, it might help with that drying process.
Mm-hmm. I see. Just lay it out. Yeah. All right.
Okay. Well, Elizabeth, I am dying to know what you switched to. So please tell us about your recipe.
Sure. So I made the switch this morning, like I said, to something that I made earlier this week. At first I was thinking of doing the salad recipe that Katie brought up, but I switched. I checked out this book on Monday of this week, Jamie Oliver Ultimate Veg. I was just working the Traverwood desk and was shelving some holds, and I saw that someone had placed this on hold. So I went to see if we had a copy on the shelf there, and we did. So I checked it out. And I ended up on Tuesday making this recipe, which is greens, mac and cheese, because I was kind of craving mac and cheese, but it's just so not good for you that I did. Anyway, so this is greens, mac and cheese. And basically what you do is it requires broccolini, some leeks, spinach, and then some cheese and some milk. So you basically cut the stems off the broccolini, separate them from the yummy top part, and you thinly chop the stems and the leeks along with some garlic, and you saute that in a pan until it gets kind of soft. Then you stir in some flour and some actually only 2% milk, which I thought was kind of nice because I don't know, I'm not a big whole milk fan. So you stir in some flour and 2% milk and simmer until it gets kind of thickened. Meanwhile, you cook some pasta, doesn't really matter what shape, to your liking, and just let it drain. And then after the sauce has thickened, you add in some sharp white cheddar and some Parmesan, stir it up really well, and then you add in a bunch of handfuls of spinach. I think it calls for 4 cups of spinach. And then you actually blend it into a sauce. So I use an immersion blender, but you could also just put it in a regular blender if you might have to work in batches, but you blend it. And the picture here like has it this like really beautiful bright green. I was kind of hopeful for that. Mine did not turn that bright of green. It was more of a forest green, but it's, you know, it did all work. And then you add that into a baking dish with the pasta, stir it all together, and add the tops of the broccolini back in. And then you bake it for about half an hour until the top is kind of golden brown. And it was really delicious. It baked great. It did feel less heavy than a traditional mac and cheese. And I did feel like there was obviously still a fair amount of cheese in it, but it did feel like I was getting a decent amount of veggies between all the spinach and the broccolini. And I liked that you used the stems of the broccolini as well. That felt very non-wasteful to me. And they actually blended up really nice and made it kind of silky smooth, I felt like, because they got really softened when you sauteed it. You're supposed to top it with some flaked almonds, which I didn't have. That might have added a nice crunch, but I didn't have them. It's no big deal. Yeah, so it said too that you could swap the spinach for any other greens you wanted, like Swiss chard or kale or whatever. So if I had other stuff on hand, might have thrown that in. And it ended up being really good. And I think I would make it again. Although I still want to try out how to get this like bright green color that he managed to get, because it like looks so pretty on the plate, and mine seemed a little duller. So yeah, that is greens mac and cheese, ultimate veg.
Nice. I love a green mac and cheese.
I've never heard of green mac and cheese before, so that's new to me. I thought that was really cool, that the sauce, I wasn't expecting you to go there when you did. So that was really neat with the, not just the broccolini, but I'm not a big fan of like whole leeks. So I like the flavor of leeks, but I don't really like them when they're whole. So the blending of down sounds really neat. And I think that sauce would sound really good. And I was actually thinking before you went to like the baking, I was like, ooh, that might be good on rice. That cheesy, like green broccolini.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think you could do a lot with that. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely wouldn't have to bake it for sure, you know.
Yes, just stir it right in. Yeah, totally. You guys are like reading my mind.
Well, Beth, do you want to tell us what you made?
Well, yes. It's so funny. Well, first of all, this cookbook, The New Frontier, was one that I maybe shared it already, but I had it during the pandemic from the library. And then so for quite a few months, and I had to buy it. I got it as a gift because I used it so much. So so this is mean green mac and cheese. However, I've made this mac and cheese a few times. I've made it for, folks like when they've been sick or, you know, after a baby and stuff. So good. But what I love about Reed Drummond is how she will always add, you know, different variations to her recipes and things that you can do. So her greens, and this is a very intense, super cheesy, I think it's whole milk. Yeah. 2 cups of whole milk, half and half, you know, 4.5 cups of cheese, white cheddar fontina. So I didn't make it. It's really, 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 really good. So I guess it's good to know that I don't have to include this recipe because Elizabeth already has mac and cheese. But anyway, so she always has a variation, and I wanted to take this green mixture and see, because she says you can use this fresh and flavorful herb puree to inject gorgeous green color into dishes like mashed potatoes, scalloped potatoes, fettuccine, blah, blah, blah. I did try it on rice. So it's 3 cups of spinach, 3 cups of arugula, a half cup of basil, 1/3 cup of mint leaves, 1/4 cup of parsley leaves, 2 cloves of garlic, red pepper flakes, salt, pepper, and 1/4 cup of olive oil. So I took that, and for me, a really good indicator of how useful a mixture like that is will it dip? And yes, I added it to Greek yogurt, and it made a delicious dip with potato chips. Could
my
be good
gosh.
with veggies. I added it to rice and added some cheese. It seemed to go well with dairy, in my opinion. What else did I didn't end up making, I really wanted to make green eggs, but I didn't get around that. I just added it to sauces and stuff. So it's very delicious. And I would say it's worth it. During the season, you know, got all the stuff, because I typically, you know, I do still have mint growing, and parsley, but I did end up buying the basil, and, you know, anyway, it's very good. And so I love how our recipes are all intertwined and related. But yeah, so I made mean green sauce.
Beth, do you chop everything really finely? How do you, or do you blend it, or what is it?
I put it in
How
the
do you do it?
processor. Yeah.
Oh, food processor. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a little bit in batches, because it's a lot of spinach and arugula, but I love that peppery arugula. And it's really, I mean, I could have and thought about making just box macaroni and cheese and putting it in there. And I will do that. But I used all the green stuff for something else, but I think in the rice. Yeah. So
I love how versatile that is. It's so great.
Yeah. I know what I did. I put it on toast with cream cheese, and that was really yummy too. I liked it. So all around good stuff. Good to have greens in your life. If we don't have any other comments about what we made today, I'm going to say I appreciate you watching Recipe Share, and be sure to click the link below to look at the event page on aadl.org to find the recipes that we talked about, and share your own in the comments. Join us next time when we'll be talking about recipes for 5 ingredients or less. That should be interesting. Thanks for watching, and thanks for sharing. Bye.
Recipe share, share a little recipe with Recipe